Hey, what's up y'all? Lad here. How's it going? Welcome back to another Octopath Traveler COTC video. Today we'll be talking about the new weapons, primarily the sacred weapons, Twilight, and Adamantine. Let's go ahead and get started. For today's example, we'll go ahead and use Fior. Comparing the sacred sword to the Twilight sword, that's an increase of 15 attack. To the Adamantine sword, that's a total increase of 62. Now there are a few things that you might want to consider. Still using Fior as an example, you can see sacred weapons have a additional attribute of 30 SP. That's throughout the whole entire weapons. Twilight weapons have a additional attribute of 300 HP. And Adamantine weapons focus on the physical attack attribute. I would argue that between the Twilight weapons and the sacred weapons, Twilight weapons are probably the better weapons to use. But that is, of course, if you do have Adamantine weapons and your user is a DPS unit, I would highly recommend you using Adamantine weapons. Alright, let's go ahead and do a showcase. Just as the next person, I do like seeing numbers. We're going to go ahead and test the Fior's damage using the Sacred Sword level 4 to the Twilight Sword 4 and finally into the Adamantine Sword. Now for these tests, we'll go ahead and do normal attack along with an ability. This time we'll go ahead and test the Twilight Sword out. That's going to be an increase of 15 attack. Finally, we'll go ahead and use the Adamantine Sword. That's going to give us a total increase of 47 attack. Okay, so comparing the normal attack damage, for some reason the damage roll, I kept getting a higher number on the Sacred Sword, even though the Twilight Sword is the better of the two. But taking a look at the Adamantine Sword with a normal attack, we had a total of 6741, which is a total of 1.33% damage increase from the Twilight Sword. On to using abilities. Again, you can see that Adamantine Sword has the higher of the two damages. It's a total increase of 1.08% damage from the Twilight Sword. Obviously, there's going to be a damage variance in your damage roll, and whether you get a crit or not. So take that into account as well. Okay, so there you have it. That is the damage difference that you get. I did go ahead and make a little chart. Let's go ahead and move over to that. So here's a chart that I made with all the characters I feel like could benefit from these weapons. We'll go ahead and start with these sword users. I would highly recommend any sword users using Adamantine weapons, as right now our sword users have the highest capabilities of doing the most damage. Moving on to our dagger users or our thieves. I put Therion up here. If you had Therion or Ritu, I would highly recommend you getting a Adamantine weapons. Now let's say you don't have either. Let's say you have Viola. In that case, I would definitely recommend you using a Twilight or a sacred weapon. I would recommend Twilight first, as their HP pool is not the greatest. On to our next ones, our apothecaries. Here I have Elfin on top. Right now, there is not a lot of strong apothecary or X users in the game, globally. In the future, we'll have some more stronger. But right now, our strongest DPS user is Elfin, with his last stand ability. Let's say you don't have Elfin. In that case, I would highly recommend you using a Twilight. The other apothecaries like Theo, his job is there to buff your team with the Esoteric Cure and also break shields. He's not a very strong DPS user. Shelby is also good for breaking shields, but she does not do a lot of damage. Onto our next characters, which are the merchants. We have Bard up here. Unless you have Cardona or Bard, I would highly recommend you get a Twilight weapon for your merchants, as they're mainly there to tank damage. Moving on to our bow users or our hunters, I would highly recommend you using Adamantine weapons. Hunters are mainly there to break shields, and they're pretty good at doing that. Alright, and then onto our Tome users. Again, I would recommend Twilight weapons. Having more HP for our really squishy magic users is always something that's nice to have. I would also recommend Sacred as well, but magic users in this game have a pretty high SP pool, and I would not recommend the Adamantine weapons for these magic users at all. Finally, onto our dancers or our fan users. Again, I would highly recommend a Twilight weapon, as dances are usually there to buff your team and debuff the enemies. While they're surprisingly fast, they're pretty squishy, so having 300 HP added on is always nice to have. Alright, so that's the end of the video. I wanted to keep it short. The next video will be talking about the unreleased weapons, so get ready for that. And like always, take care of yourself. Lad out.